And I'm not sure I'm not sure I can see the chat. So Kim is going to be monitoring the chat box. And I guess we're going to answer questions at the end more, but you can all, if something gets glossed by, you can always contact me later on. So let me start my screen share and let's see how that works. Okay. Everybody see that okay?
Yes.
Great.
So I'm going to just jump back. I want you to notice that I said short answer, you already are one. Because I think sometimes people think, oh, that's just research is a whole nother thing. I'm not doing that. I'm like just doing what I do and whatever. But everything we are doing every day, every question we ask in terms of how do we do this better for this particular patient, or what would help this situation better, or what kind of a system would be better in place. Those are all kind of, you're already doing research. So it's more just thinking about and acknowledging that as midwives, we are always doing research. The thing is, the slide, so that I'm going to like minimize the, how can I minimize the, okay, sorry. I'm going to have to minimize the pictures on the edge so I can see the slides. Okay. Okay. So a lot of times people start by talking about research like, oh, you're doing this grand thing for everybody else. Essentially, you're doing it for yourself. I mean, you have to care about what you're doing, and why you might want to be doing it is to really just understand what's going on around you. And it's more a chance, or what we naturally do, to take a situation and strip it down to its essentials. What's really happening here? So really, research is not necessarily building something big and intricate. It's actually using assumptions and simplifying what's happening, and so that you can really focus in, hone in on what's going on. It helps you add clarity to what you're seeing around you, what you're experiencing, what you're hearing, observing, and everything you do in your work. Even as you drive to work and you're thinking about communities or neighborhoods, all of that is like kind of a jumble. But research is sort of the way to sort of focus on, okay, what's really going on here? And it's a matter of weeding out all the extraneous stuff and really simplifying it down. Now, necessarily, if you simplify, you're going to cut out a lot of the important stuff, but you got to start with something simple and then build on that. But that's how you that's the best way to kind of think about research, is to really, it's an act of simplification. It's also really fun because you kind of figure out things and you're like, oh, that's how this is working out, and you are giving yourself the opportunity to read and talk with people and figure out what's going on. So I think that's fun, because when I understand something better, I'm less anxious. I have more strength. I'm able to, um, you know, build on something instead of just fuming about it, right? So the other benefits are, you want to make a difference. And another thing is, you want to be able to communicate more easily with others. So when you learn how to do research in a kind of a rigorous way, you can start to communicate with people from all different types of research. People who are doing AIDS research, who are doing, nuclear cardiology research. I mean, once you understand the basic ideas of how to do research in a more academic setting, which is not the only way, but it just increases your ability to communicate better with other people. And then, of course, there are benefits to others. Obviously, that's what we all hope. So when you can do research that kind of explains a situation more easily, you can use that to leverage policy initiatives. So if you're trying to change a state law around midwifery practice, or access to healthcare insurance, all those things, if you have the data and the research, and you have kind of some what you can make some causal inferences. It's not always going to be A leads to B, but if you can kind of build a case for something, that can help you change healthcare policy. It can improve care for your patients. It can improve systems, your hospitals, your birth centers, wherever you're doing birth. It can help improve those systems if that's what you're going to focus on in your research. And then again, when you're doing research, it increases the collaboration and communication with other people that you might not have known otherwise. Case in point is one of the research papers I did in graduate school was social determinants of health of Haitian Americans. And I picked a group that I really didn't know anything about. And, you know, most of the Haitian Americans live in Florida. But lo and behold, many years later, a couple of weekends ago, I was doing, excuse me, refugee care down in Tijuana, and it was a camp of Haitians. And I feel like because I did that huge paper in one of my graduate courses, I understood a little bit more than I would have what these Haitians were going through, where they had come from, what they were hoping to find, and also the strengths in that community. So it's like, it really just like everything you can know a little bit more about the world is going to help you down the road. And then the long-term benefits are everybody that you can then start to communicate with. It increases your communication ability and community building. And again, it's fun. So in terms of the creation of community, even in midwifery, there's so many people who are doing midwifery research. These are just a few of the people that I use in some of my research. And I have met, like, the second person on this list you see is Mary Barger. So she's down here in San Diego. She was actually on my dissertation committee. A lot of these people, you just get so inspired by them. So they become sort of like mentors on paper, because you're like, oh, if they can do it, you know, how did they get around this issue? Or, you know, I've even called up some people and said, hey, I really like your research. I really would love to see you, you know, publish it. And, you know, even if they don't publish it, it's like still good research. And anyway, you build your sense of connection with others. So a lot of people in midwifery are doing research. And one of the good, we have a journal of midwifery. So there is a lot of midwifery research going on already, of which you will become a community with. So one of the things to approach research as a career trajectory is to start right now. So if you're already been out of midwifery school and you've been practicing as a midwife for a while, or you're just getting out of midwifery school, or you're even still in midwifery school, keep a notebook and just jot down questions of issues that you think are interesting. And it kind of helps you see, these are the sort of things that over and over again, I'm writing down in my notebook as things that matter to me. So I had worked in birth centers. So one of the things I kept noticing as I'm writing down my notes to myself is I was wondering about, you know, why are some birth centers able to, you know, keep going and other ones kind of fall by the wayside. So eventually in my own research, I worked on the sustainability of birth centers. And then if you do go to graduate school, or even if you don't, anybody can go to these research conferences and talk with others who are doing research. So that's super interesting, because people have posters and they're just standing by their posters, and you can just, you know, you don't have to look at everything, but just go to the ones you're interested in and then talk with those people. And they love to talk about their research, and you can sort of see what's going on and what the possibilities are. For people who are thinking of maybe eventually going to a program, we have a choice of like a DNP, which is a doctorate of nursing practice, versus a PhD. And that was something I kind of tried to figure out at the beginning myself. My understanding is that a DNP is more focused on like a clinical doctorate. So that would be sort of analogous to a medical doctorate is the nursing doctorate, versus a PhD is more, maybe more research focused, not as clinically based necessarily. I think the DNP is very, well, maybe Kim can talk about this later. But my understanding is that it's more clinically focused, and but I think a PhD, I went for a PhD because I felt like that was more universally recognized. And I wanted to kind of feel like I could talk with another person who was a PhD and, you know, we would be sort of on the same page. I don't know if that was a valid reason, but I felt I felt like I was already doing a lot of clinical work and I wanted to do something more focused on research. But I think we study the same kinds of things in terms of um, research methods in graduate school. And then the other question is, do you need to actually be in a university to do research? And no, you can be in your work setting and start to do your own research. Just keep notes on things, keep doing case studies, write up questions, and you can even do like serial experiments, just observational like case studies, and then build up a body of data. And the other thing is you can partner with somebody who else is at a university if you want to do something that has access to more of the university resources. I hope I'm not forgetting stuff that I wanted to talk about in terms of all my notes. Hold on for a second. Okay, yes. Okay. But if you do go to a research university or a research program within a university, definitely look into it and don't settle, because they are not all the same. They are not all as good as UCSF. So try to find a program that really has a good reputation, and one where, you know, you would think that everybody would, if they're accredited, is going to be good. No, it's not true. So really try to do your research and learn about who's there, what kind of research are they doing, what's the relationship that the professors have with their students. Are they the type of professor who wants to be called Dr. So-and-so, or are they the sort of, is it the sort of faculty that you're on first name with them? It's not like they're your friends, but you do want to feel like you have a collegial relationship with the people that you're going to be working with. So I think that's super important. Unfortunately, maybe it's just my experience, but especially in nursing, it's really important to find people that you feel comfortable with. So yeah, let's see what else. There is funding for doing graduate level research. The school sometimes has funding. I got a really good scholarship from Johnson & Johnson, and you know, there's just lots of ways to get your funding, and state university is usually less expensive if you can go that route as well. And the other thing that it's important to know is that when you're going for a degree like a PhD or a DMP, it's not just the research that you're doing. It's a huge program that includes other courses. You're interacting with a lot of people. There's a lot of networking. You're doing a lot of reading and writing papers. You know, I put just one at a time and sometimes a couple at a time. So you're going to learn a lot within a research program at a university because it's very well structured. And that's kind of what I think is the advantage of a university program. And they have a lot of good resources available, especially the libraries, because the libraries and the librarians at the libraries are super helpful people. And that I found across the board, no matter what university you're at, the librarians have always been super great. And then the other thing that's super important is to line up your emotional support first, and don't try to do it by yourself. You need to have support, your midwifery colleagues, your mentors, your family. With family, it can go either way. So I was having a problem with one of my professors, and I told my daughter about it, and she said, "Oh, well." And I'm like, no, that's not the response. I want you to say, no, mom, go for it. You know, so you got to be careful who you talk to in your family, because sometimes your family is going to feel they don't like seeing you stressed out sometimes. And so they're just going to say, oh, just drop it. No, you need to find people who are going to be encouraging and supportive, not people who are going to say, oh, well, give it up. I mean, that daughter is very supportive in other ways, but at that moment she was not. But she was probably worn out by me complaining. Okay, so then when you think about maybe going on a formal research study, it's usually broken up into qualitative research or quantitative research. And in my mind, I think of qualitative as more like you're doing a lot of interviews, you're asking a lot of questions, you're trying to gather themes from what you're hearing people say. Quantitative is going to be more like statistics and crunching data. And, both have their advantages and disadvantages. I think I really like getting into the data. I think it's kind of fun because to me, it seems a little simpler than to try to figure out what people are meaning. And that's just me because I think I just don't understand people sometimes. So I kind of like statistics, but it's not always hard and dry. It's kind of like whatever you have more fun doing, really. And some people try to do both. I would suggest don't do both, just do one or the other and keep your study very small because it will grow anyway. So keep it small and simple at the beginning, because the purpose of a program is to really just get through it, learn how to do research, take all those great graduate level courses and learn what research is all about. But after you graduate, that's when you can do postdoc work or, go on another bit of research and do something even more complicated. But the important thing is it needs to be very interesting to you, because there will definitely be times when you're going to like, oh my God, this is such a bother. But as long as you care about what you're doing, you should be able to just keep with it. And then also there's case studies too. Like for my master's, we had to do a master's thesis, and I did a single subject research design with one woman. Sorry if my dogs are barking a lot. I hope you guys can't hear it as much as I do. But it was a woman who was trying to keep up her breast milk supply, and she had a baby in the NICU. And it was just one woman, and I was doing an intervention with a relaxation audio tape, kind of a self hypnosis thing. And so I just kind of tried different things with that one person. And, so the important thing is don't let people say, oh, that's not research or it's not valid. Every research is valid. Every research that's gathering data and that you're organizing the data and trying to present it, that is research, and everything is good. Some people will say, oh, it's not like the gold standard. No, every research is good. It depends on what you want to do and what you feel will add to the greater body of knowledge that will grow and help others as well. So that gets to the point that research is not a dry topic. It's not clean. You definitely have biases. You need to know what your biases are and acknowledge them. And it's okay to have them, but you got to realize how that's going to affect your interpretation of your results, how you even gather data, the type of people you talk with or don't talk with, how others might perceive your work. So it's good to try to minimize the biases. So if you really dig into what your biases are, you can try to minimize them as much as possible. And when you feel like you can't, you're just really upfront with it and very open so that people don't feel like you're trying to hide anything. So it's very important to be clear about where and how you get your data and how you're using your data and storing your data, and just, maintaining privacy as much as possible, and, those kind of issues. And then it's important to get help, because you're not doing research by yourself. Like I was doing a very statistical research project in my dissertation, and I reached out to a statistician, and she was fantastic. I was essentially the one doing all the research, but she would kind of say, hey, have you thought about this? Or you might want to try it this way. And, so it's not like you're going to do it on your own. You're not expected to be doing it on your own. In fact, the people who can collaborate with others are actually the ones that get the most done and have the most respect, because people feel like you're not just going off on some tangent trying to do it on your own. You're working within a group. And so people actually see a strength in that. And then, of course, the most important thing is do not give up. Even though you might think it's not going well, you just got to reach out and maybe take a break or, take a pause, but try to keep working on it a little bit all the time. Okay, so the other thing that's important is doing research that actually matters. So one of the things that came up was you can think of a really good research question, but ultimately people are going to say, so what? I mean, it has to be something that actually will matter. I mean, it should matter a lot to you, but it should also matter to other people. So it's not just a matter of saying, oh, I'm getting my degree. No, I mean, yes, you can do that. And people are kind of being coerced into getting their DMPs or PhDs because, the university wants to have that. But I would say push back and ask yourself, okay, but do I want to do this? Is it something that's important to me? Because if it's not really important to you, it's not going to be that easy. And it's so much more fun to do something that you care about. So I would say try to find something that is meaningful to you, but also something that is going to help other people. So when you are trying to figure out what you're going to do, be very clear to the people involved what the risks are and the benefits, because usually there's going to be a benefit. So you don't want to just say there's all these risks. You want to say, hey, the benefits to you of being involved in this research is this and this and this. So it's important to be very clear about all parts of it. Another thing that people are always kind of in dread of is the IRB. This is the Institutional Review Board. And people are always like, oh, you've got to get it through the IRB. The IRB is they're good. They're the ones who care about the ethics of the research. So, you want to be totally on board with whatever the IRB is recommending or questioning, because they're trying to make your research as strong as possible. If your research isn't ethical, you're not going to feel good about it either down the line. And you're just going to have a hard time getting it out there and having other people accept it. So the IRB is a really good group of people. They are independent, so they're not going to be your buddies. They're going to really kind of point out all the holes in what they see are maybe ethical lapses or, privacy concerns. So it's good. They're giving you all this good feedback, and then you have to work it in and fix your research design. So it does take time, but it's important to go through that process. So it's important. And then finally, again, finding out who you want to partner with. So let me make sure I got all my notes here that I'm still on board with stuff. Okay. Right. So again, this is the kind of part where you might want to say, I can do research on my own. I don't have to really go through a research program. I can partner with somebody at a university. That is good. You can even publish with somebody at a university. But usually if you want to publish, you do need to have some kind of a connection, because publishing is peer reviewed, and you want that because you don't want to like self-publish it's not like self-publishing your novel. You don't want to self-publish your research. You want to have something where other people have looked at it and weighed in on it. So I mean, those are my biases, to be honest. I have a great respect for universities, and I do feel like they have the resources, especially the public universities. They're there for us. So they have really good resources. They have, statisticians, they have good librarians, they have people who have worked hard. But like I said, you can also partner and do informal partnerships. And, when you're doing your research, you're going to have to figure out, okay, if I want to do a formal research question and really dig into it, you need to get into that background to see what's been done on that and how other people have approached it, because you want to build on something that somebody else has started. Your stuff might be really different, but you have to show where the gaps are in the background, in the prior research, so that you can say, okay, I'm filling in this gap here, or this is what I want to build on. Maybe these people have done it this way. I want to try doing it this way with this community. It's all good. Now, one of the things that people really will push on you is that you have to publish. It is good to publish, but if you do a dissertation, it will be published, because when you submit your dissertation, it is published. And when I did my own dissertation, I used a lot of those. One of my literature searches was to go back and look at other dissertations. So it is going to be accessible. Now, whether you need to publish after you finish, it just depends. If you work at a university that's going to be counting on you doing a lot of publishing, because the universities get a lot of money from researchers doing grant writing. And so if you're doing that, you're going to have to publish papers and all that. If you're not in that situation, you don't really have to publish papers. That's my own bias, because I haven't been publishing papers. I would love to publish, but it's another issue, and it's separate from doing research, is what I'm saying. but you do want to get your research out there in some form, if only to be involved in committees or other people's work, that your background now, having done that research, is going to help. So there's just a lot of ways to use your background as a midwife researcher in the community. And yes, if you can publish, that's great. And but it's a whole nother topic. Now, I must say, the American College of Nurse Midwives, at their annual meetings, they usually have a session on how to publish, which has been very helpful. And I would say at some point it would be good to contact those people, and because they really want to help you get your stuff published in the midwifery journals and other healthcare research things. So there are avenues to do it, but it's a whole nother ballgame. And again, it's really about building community, because if you are interested in questions and looking for answers, you are going to meet a lot of interesting people outside of your own little work setting. And it's just, I don't know, it's super interesting. So I hope that will kind of let people know that it's not this big new thing that you have to do. It's something you're already doing. It's more just expanding your horizons and how to, connect with other people even more. And that's what I have. Are there any questions?